I'm Lena, 32 years old, and I've spent nearly a decade building Solara Haven, a small but exquisite resort nestled along the shores of Santa Monica. Every stone laid, every flower blooming in the garden carries my touch. This place isn't just where I work, it's my home, my pride, my everything. Everything changed one sunny Friday afternoon when Julian Carter walked into the lobby. He looked like he had just stepped out of a luxury ad. Perfectly tailored suit, expensive sunglasses, and eyes fixed on his sleek phone. But it wasn't any of that that caught my attention. It was his smile, confident, charming, and just a little dangerous. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice warm and smooth, like honey poured over a glass of whiskey. "I'm Julian. I have a reservation for 2 nights. Anything interesting to do around here?" I was momentarily caught off guard by the way he looked me directly in the eye, like the rest of the world had faded away. "Welcome to Solara Haven, Julian," I replied, keeping my tone professional despite the flutter in my chest. "That depends on what you're looking for. This city's full of surprises." It was a brief exchange, but there was something in his gaze I couldn't shake, an interest that felt real, or at least convincing enough to make me smile. He left 2 days later without making much more of a mark, except for one small note he left at the front desk. "Really enjoyed talking with you. If you'd like to continue, dinner's on me." I stood there with the note in hand, silent for a few moments. I wasn't the kind of woman who mixed work and personal life, but something about Julian made me pause. Part curiosity, part hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than the work I'd poured everything into. I read Julian's note again and again, and despite what reason told me, I texted him back. We met at a tucked-away restaurant in the old quarter, glowing with warm light and quiet laughter. Julian was already there, standing to pull out my chair like a true gentleman. Conversation flowed easily. He spoke of Europe and high-stakes investments, but it was the little things, his love for jazz, a favorite sandwich shop, that made him feel real. When it was my turn, I hesitated, then shared my story. Losing my parents at 21, raising Mina, and turning their small savings into Solara Haven. "It's home," I said. "I don't know who I'd be without it." Julian looked at me, steady and sincere. "You're stronger than you think, Lena." Something warm stirred in me. Maybe connection, maybe something more. We walked along the beach afterward, quiet under the moonlight. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I'm glad we met," I replied, and meant it. That was the beginning of everything. Everything happened so fast, I didn't even notice when Julian became part of my life. He returned to Solara Haven just weeks later, claiming he wanted a longer getaway, but soon our days blurred together. Coffee in the mornings, walks in the afternoons, deep talks at night. Julian had a way of making the ordinary magical. Dinners felt like celebrations. Coffee came with flowers and soft stolen words that felt too perfect to be real. One evening, in a quiet seaside cafe, he took my hand and said, "Lena, I know it's fast, but when something feels right, why wait?" I hesitated, torn between excitement and fear. Then came the proposal, a dream wedding on the beach, live music, lanterns, a honeymoon in the Maldives. "We'll split it," he said. "You use your savings for the wedding, I'll cover the rest." Part of me resisted, but his gaze, intense and full of promise, made me say yes. "Let's make it unforgettable," I whispered. But what I didn't realize was that he wasn't building a dream with me. He was setting the trap, and I was walking straight into it. The weeks that followed felt like a dream. The wedding consumed every conversation, and Julian, as always, took charge, from venues to menus. "I want it to be perfect," he'd say, eyes lit with excitement. While I was lost in florals and fairy lights, one thing kept nagging at me: Mina, my sister, my closest confidant. But lately, she felt distant. One Saturday I called and invited her to a dress fitting. She joked, "For you, I'll trade my coffee and croissant." But something in her voice felt off. The boutique was a vision in white, When I stepped out in a gown that felt just right, Mina stood, stunned. "You look beautiful," she whispered, then quickly turned away. She pulled a dress from the rack. "Mind if I try this one? Just for fun," I teased. "Secret wedding I don't know about?" She laughed, but it was empty. "You know me, always the bridesmaid, never the bride." We continued, but the vibe had shifted. Mina avoided eye contact, offered vague replies, and fell into silences that didn't feel like her. When I asked if she was okay, she blamed work stress, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I tried to believe her, but that night, lying awake, I couldn't shake the feeling. In the middle of all the glittering dreams, one shadow kept growing, and its name was Mina. One weekday morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains as I slowly woke up in the apartment Julian and I had been staying in ahead of the wedding. He had left early, said he had to meet with the event planners, his shirt half-buttoned as he rushed out the door. Still groggy, I started tidying up the kitchen when I heard a familiar ding. Julian's phone, left behind on the countertop, lit up. A message popped up on the screen, "Unlocked, unprotected." At first, I didn't mean to look. I wasn't the kind of person who invaded someone's privacy. But then it pinged again and again. The sender's name flashed clearly, Mina, and suddenly, my heart started pounding. I picked up the phone. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it. I tapped the screen, and the world as I knew it shattered. "Can't believe we're almost out of this. I hate pretending to be the sweet little sister, but it's nearly done. And you? I can't wait until we can finally live our truth." Another message. "She thinks I'm just stressed about work. She suspects nothing. I tried on a wedding dress, and Lena even complimented me. Hurts like hell." I scrolled. Each message was a blade, slicing deeper than the last. They weren't just cheating. They were using me, the sister who had raised Mina after our parents died. Me, the woman who had poured her life savings into this wedding, only to be turned into a fool in their twisted little charade. "She's just an ATM. And Julian, I'm pregnant. It's real. Once the wedding's over, we vanish, just like we planned." I felt nothing but numbness, pain, betrayal, fury, all blended into something beyond words. But instead of screaming or smashing something, I just stood there, frozen, staring at the screen. Julian called me an investment. Mina called me a fool, and they thought they'd won. They were wrong. I drew in a slow, steady breath, then gently set the phone back down as if I'd never touched it. And in that exact moment, a plan began to take shape in my mind. Precise, deliberate, sharp as a blade. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't run. I would make them regret every lie they ever told me, 1 second at a time. When Julian came home that afternoon, wearing his usual gentle smile and soft eyes, I was ready. I greeted him with a light hug and the familiar question, "How was the meeting?" "All good," he replied, placing a kiss on my forehead. "But nothing's more important than coming back to you." Once upon a time, that line would have melted me. But now, every word from his lips felt like venom, and I'd learned to sit still, smile, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. I kept playing the part of the happy bride-to-be. We picked out wedding flowers, sampled cakes, arranged seating charts. Mina showed up for a few appointments too, offering tight smiles and eyes that never quite met mine. I saw it all. I remembered it all. The quick glances, the accidental shoulder brushes, the way Julian kept his phone glued to him like it held national secrets. But I said nothing. I let them believe I was blind. At night, when the apartment was quiet, I sat alone with a glass of wine and my laptop. I contacted a private investigator, someone I had once worked with while arranging services for VIP clients. I gave him everything: phone numbers, license plates, schedules. He asked, "What exactly do you want from this guy?" "I want the truth," I said. "All of it. And I want it before the wedding." Because I didn't just want to expose them. I wanted to tear off the mask they wore, right in front of everyone who ever believed in them. When Mina excused herself from a dress fitting, claiming she was just tired. I waved after her. "You should rest," I said sweetly. "Wedding stress is real." She looked at me, eyes searching, cautious. I smiled back, the sweetest lie I had ever told. Day by day, I was both the glowing bride everyone admired and the quiet architect of their spectacular downfall. I was no longer the naive Lena who believed in empty promises. I was the storm coming, and Julian and Mina would be the first to feel the full force of it. The wedding day arrived under a sapphire blue sky, with a soft ocean breeze drifting in from the west. Solara Haven, the resort that had once been my dream, now shimmered in its most magnificent form. Crystal lights swayed gently from tree branches. White linens covered the tables like snow, and fresh flowers from Dalat were arranged with precision, color by color. Guests arrived in full. Laughter, music, and warm wishes echoed through the air. No one knew they weren't just here for a wedding. They were here to witness a masterful reveal. I stepped out of the dressing room in a long white gown that sparkled like moonlight. My makeup was elegant, my gaze unwavering. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid. I was a woman who knew exactly what she was about to do. Julian stood at the altar, smiling as if everything was under control. Mina was nowhere in sight, exactly as planned. The music began. I walked between the rows of chairs, the eyes of the crowd fixed on me. Each step I took wasn't for love, it was for truth. The ceremony began. The officiant had barely spoken a word when the back doors burst open. Mina appeared. She was wearing a wedding dress. A wave of stunned silence rippled through the space, like a cold gust of wind. She marched down the aisle, her eyes steady, not a trace of shame. "Lena," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but loud and clear. "You don't need to go through with this. Julian loves me, and the baby I'm carrying, it's his." Gasps, murmurs, guests shifting in their seats, and Julian laughed. "She's right, Mina," he said, turning to me with a smirk. "Lena, you're amazing. But let's be honest, you were always better at being the backdrop." I said nothing for a moment. Then, slowly, I smiled. "How wonderful," I replied, my voice calm, almost icy. "I wouldn't want to miss this moment. After all, I paid for everything. The least I can do is enjoy the grand finale." A silence, sharp as glass, fell over the crowd. Julian and Mina exchanged confused glances, neither of them understanding why I was still so composed. I turned to the guests and raised my hand. A staff member approached, placing a microphone gently into my palm. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady as steel. "Today isn't just a wedding. It's time for something far more entertaining, a spectacular unveiling." I gripped the microphone lightly. No shaking, no rage, just pure clarity and a storm waiting to erupt. "Thank you, Mina and Julian," I said, my voice still sweet as honey, "for the incredibly well-rehearsed performance. But unfortunately, I've known for a while now." The entire venue fell silent. Julian froze. Mina's eyes widened, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. I turned toward the guests, now lining the grass aisle. "I once believed this would be the most important day of my life," I began, "until I discovered that my groom already has a wife. Yes, a legal wife, named Catherine Carter." Right then, the back gate opened. A woman in a sleek black dress stepped through, sharp, composed, and carrying eyes that could cut glass. "Catherine." "Ethan." "No, Julian," she said, her voice firm and cutting. "Did you forget you still have a family in San Diego? Or your 6-year-old daughter that you've never paid a single cent to support?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests exchanged stunned looks. Julian turned pale. I walked slowly toward him. "You didn't just betray me, Julian. You lied to everyone. You told me you had countless successful investments. But the truth is, you're drowning in debt, aren't you?" Julian backed away slightly. I turned to Mina. "And you, Mina, you're my sister, the one I raised, protected, loved. You lied, betrayed me, got pregnant by my fiancé, and plan to trample everything I built for your little fairy tale." Mina broke into tears, but I didn't soften. Not this time. "And one last thing," I said, pulling a stack of papers from my clutch. "A legal contract, one that states, if Julian Carter is found guilty of fraud or infidelity, all assets tied to the wedding investment revert to me, including the apartment, the wedding expenses, and the advance payment for the honeymoon." I turned to the event coordinator, who was already standing nearby. "Cancel all remaining services, and please, escort our 2 special guests off the property." Applause erupted from one side of the crowd and quickly spread like wildfire. Some people whistled, others turned to Julian and Mina with pure disgust in their eyes. Julian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mina collapsed into a chair, covering her face. I turned around, chin high. No one gets to discard me like I'm nothing. And no one silences Lena Anderson once she's found her voice. The wedding dissolved like a dream shattered by thunder. That day, Solara Haven didn't host a marriage. It witnessed a public trial. No jury, no judge's robes, only the truth and the thunderous applause of justice. But I didn't stop there. A few weeks later, my lawyer and I filed an official lawsuit against Julian Carter for fraud, misappropriation of funds, and emotional damages. The evidence from the private investigator, the legal contract, and Catherine's testimony stacked up like bricks in a wall. In court, he was no longer the charming man with a sugar-sweet smile. He was frail, hollow-eyed, wearing a rented suit and a look of defeat. His lawyer sat beside him, head bowed in silence. I trusted the defendant, I told the court, my voice unwavering. I shared my finances, my heart, and was betrayed, not just by him, but by the only family I had left. I'm not here to reclaim love. I'm here to reclaim my dignity. The judge brought the gavel down. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Lena Anderson. The defendant, Julian Carter, is ordered to pay $50,000 in damages. A separate civil investigation will proceed based on the additional claims filed by Catherine Carter. I had won, but not because of the money. I had taken back control of my own life. Julian disappeared after the trial. Catherine continued her own legal case as his lawful wife. He lost everything: his reputation, his finances, and custody of his child. And Mina, my sister, was left behind, alone, pregnant, surrounded by the wreckage she helped create. One afternoon, she appeared at the gates of the resort. No makeup, no designer clothes, just a broken girl, worn and hollow, barely holding herself together. "Lena," she choked, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I don't know where else to go. I'm scared." I looked into her eyes, once so familiar, now distant. I wasn't angry anymore, just sad. "Mina," I said gently, "you chose your path, and now I'm choosing mine. I truly hope you and your child will be okay, but I can't go back to a place where love was sold for so little." I turned and walked away, not out of bitterness, but because I had finally let go. After everything, I returned to Solara Haven, no longer the woman who had been betrayed, but one who had survived and awakened. I cleared away the remnants of a wedding that never happened. And instead of drowning in bitterness, I started over with the little things: tending the garden, writing again, expanding the resort. With each passing day, I felt more at peace, stronger. Julian disappeared. Catherine continued her lawsuit against him, and Mina quietly faded from my life. She had once been my sister, my family, but some wounds never heal completely. I didn't seek revenge through fire and fury. I gave them something worse: silence, and the gift of my absence in the world they no longer had permission to touch. One afternoon, I sat by the sea, a blueprint for the spa expansion in my hand, a dream I had once shelved for a love that never deserved me. The waves lapped at the shore, in rhythm with my now steady heart, and I knew I was no longer the Lena who had once loved blindly. I was the Lena who had learned to rise, to heal, and this time, to begin again, for herself. Not everything sweet is love, and not everyone related to you is truly family. Lena's story teaches us that trust is a precious thing, but when given to the wrong people, whether in love or in blood ties, it can become the very weapon that wounds us the deepest. She loved wholeheartedly, trusted her sister, sacrificed her career and finances to build what she believed was a shared future. Yet the people she cared for most were the ones who betrayed her in the cruelest way. But what made Lena truly strong wasn't revenge. It was the way she stood back up, took control of her life, and chose healing over hatred. Forgiveness isn't about giving others peace. It's about freeing yourself. Letting go isn't weakness. It's the first step toward beginning again, this time for yourself. This is a story about boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to move forward, even with a heart that's been shattered. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.